Hello, welcome to the True Crime Lounge, where we talk murder and other forms of crime. If you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment. Now, happy Halloween to everyone, and as you know, this is my favorite holiday. Yes, I know I am weird, and I embrace that weirdness. I do have a podcast you can find on YouTube and Spotify, and you can even go check out my merch shop as well. You don't have to, but you can go. You can if you want. Um, For any updates on my social media, you can find that you can check my channel. You on my any updates on my channel and podcast. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X or whoever's gonna debate it in comments. I'm calling it Twitter because that's what I grew up. Because that's what I know it as anyway. And it's just easier to say Twitter. But anyway, now since we have all that out of the way, why don't we dive into today's episode? Today, I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Ronald Clark O'Bryan, who's also known as the Candyman. And I've been wanting to do something for Halloween, and here it is. I'm so excited for this one. Anyway, he is a murderer whose methodology was poisoned by cyanide-laced candy, and so he can collect the insurance money. His victim was his 8-year-old son, Timothy O'Bryan. Ridiculous, right? What, killing your own son just to get the insurance money? Oh, it gets weirder. Um, on Halloween 1974 in Harris County, Texas. And, and as and as of March 31st, 1984, he was executed by lethal injection in Texas. So, y'all know that I love true crime and have a stranger sessions with murderers and serial killers. However, I will say this though. This is the kids that get to me. I do have a soft spot when it comes to children. You can ask anybody, my best friend, anybody. Like, I am a fun aunt. But if you mess with my babies, I will come after you. But anyway, um, the fact that he killed his own son though for the insurance money just makes me sick. It really does. How can somebody love money more than their own children? You know what his last statement was? It was, "What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings make mistakes and errors. This execution is one of the wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I will forgive all of you who have taken part in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, just as I forgive anyone who has offended me in any way. And I pray and ask for God's forgiveness for all of us respectively as human beings. To my loved one, I extend my undying love to be close to me. Know in your heart. Hmm. Know in your hearts I love you all, and God bless you all, and may God's blessings be always yours. Ronald C. O'Bryan. P.S. During my time here, I have treated myself I have been treated well by TDC personnel. Okay, just by saying this doesn't make up for the fact that you killed your own son. There's a special place for you, and I seldom say that about anybody. But yeah. He was born in October 19th, 1944. He was dubbed the Candyman, and this is not a reference to Christina Aguilera's song's Candyman. Um, he he was from Pasadena, Texas, and he killed his son on Halloween 1974. He poisoned his own son, guys, with cyanide-laced candy just to collect $20,000 in life insurance. He would also distribute this candy to other children, to make it believe that none of them ate it. Yeah. But he did this just to cover up. Now, an interesting part about all of this, is that he had recently taken out a $40,000 life insurance on both his children, Timothy and Elizabeth. It is believed that Elizabeth did not eat any of the tainted candy. O'Brien would go on to be here's the, like she was smart not to eat the candy. I will say that. But when his crimes became public, a lot of safety programs started to be implemented by the city of Pasadena, Texas. And this would include teaching methods of how to evaluate the safety of door-to-door trees by visual inspection. Like you would think, like this case right here, like parents would know, but oh my gosh, like it's crazy. But anyway, this is the reason, probably part of the reason we have that saying, but we gotta expect all the candy, right? Yeah. Well, keep in mind. So, here's a fun fact for you: the musical group Pixy and the Banshees recorded a song about O'Brien called "Candyman" in the first track on the album, Tinderbox. Keep in mind that he had a scheme to collect more than $60,000 in life insurance. And the actions of O'Brien ruined Halloween for little kids for years all over the U.S. So, on October 31st, neighbors O'Brien and Jim Bates of Deer Park, Texas, took the children trick-or-treating. Later that night, Timothy O'Brien would die from eating poison candy. It was later found that his father was the culprit. Bates said that he would wait on the sidewalk while O'Brien would go up the doors with the children, and that they went up to one house where a wall was concealing a front door. When nobody answered, the children ran off to the next house. O'Brien appeared from the wall, behind the wall, and a few seconds later, about 20 inches, filled with flavored sugar called Pixy Stix. He claimed that the residents of the house had answered the door and given the candy to him for the children. Yeah, he was just trying to cover himself up. All it was to it. As it began to drizzle that night, they were forced to turn back earlier than expected, and a little later, O'Brien made an emergency call saying that his son had eaten poison candy. Yeah. And the ambulance, which was already in the area, arrived within minutes. Timothy had eaten a Pixy Stix, which had cyanide in it, and he would die later that night. After an investigation, O'Brien was charged with the murder of Timothy. Earlier that year, O'Brien, who had made a history of fraudulent insurance claims, took a large life insurance policy out on his children. His plans was to murder his own children and collect the money, and also kill other children in the process, as it made it look like someone else did. Yeah, I know. I know. So, the prosecutors were Hinton and Victor Treswell. And they relied on the physical evidence to get O'Brien convicted, and they found that he had taken a class at the Harris County Community College and asked the teacher how poison would kill certain types of animals. And they also witnessed a claim that O'Brien would come to a wholesale chemical store. Those, alongside with plastic bags of Pixy Stix from inside the house that were laced with the jury. In his closing statement, he called it the high water mark of the community. After being found guilty, he appealed his case several times, twice to the Supreme Court, and all were rejected. So O'Brien, keep in mind he was an eye doctor. He was an optician in Texas State Optical Company, and he had already had serious financial trouble. The family was already in a delinquent number of loans and been forced to sell their home. Um, for impressing obligations. O'Brien discussed his financial burdens with his friends and acquaintances, informing some of them that he had expected to receive some money by the end of the year. So, despite his financial difficulties, O'Brien substantially increased the life insurance on the two children, Timothy and Elizabeth Lane, during 1974. So by mid-October, there was $30,000 worth of coverage on each child, while the coverage on O'Brien and his wife was minimal. So, it's just still sick in my opinion, but anyway. In August 1974, O'Brien tried to unsuccessfully attain cyanide where he worked in September, and he called a friend who worked at Agrochemical, and the two discussed varieties of availability of cyanide. O'Brien continued to discuss this among his fellow employees at the Texas State Optical. Shortly before Halloween, he appeared at the Current and Matheson Scientific Company. This was a chemical outlet in Houston. So, when he discovered that the company had cyanide available only in large quantities, O'Brien asked the salesperson where he could obtain a smaller amount. So, on Halloween of 1974, the family dined at their house, at the home of Bates' family. The children of both families had planned to go trick-or-treating together in the Bates neighborhood, and Mr. Bates had accompanied O'Brien's children and Bates and his son on the outing. So, when the party arrived at the Melvins' home, the lights were out, but O'Brien and the children went up to the house anyway. When no one answered, the children went on to the next house. O'Brien remained behind for about 30 seconds. He then ran up to the children, switching at least 2 giant Pixy Stix, and the air, exclaiming, they got rich neighbors," was handing out expensive trees. O'Brien offered to carry the Pixy Stix for the children back at the Bates house. O'Brien distributed Pixy Stix to each of the Bates' 2 children and gave them a 5th stick to a boy who came back to say trick or treat at the door. So, after the Halloween festivities had been completed, O'Brien took his children home while his wife went to visit a friend, and O'Brien had informed the children that they could each have 1 piece of candy before going to bed. Timothy chose the Pixy Stick. The boy had trouble getting the candy out of the tube, so he rolled the stick and handed him to loosen the candies to his son. When he complained that the candy had a bitter taste, O'Brien gave him some Kool-Aid to wash it down. He immediately became ill, ran to the bathroom and started vomiting. When he became sicker, and went into convulsions, he called the ambulance, and Timothy died within an hour. He arrived at the hospital. Cyanide was found in his fluids, aspirated from his stomach and in his blood. The quantity of cyanide in his blood was well above the fatal human dose. There are conflicting testimonies at this trial, though, concerning the extent to what the defendant showed, if O'Brien showed remorse or not, at the hospital and the funeral. During the days following Halloween, he gave conflicting stories as to the origin of the Pixy Stix, but he eventually claimed that the Pixy Stix came from the Melvin home. Mr. Melvin was at work late until the evening on Halloween, and O'Brien was charged and convicted of capital murder. At his sinister proceedings, the state introduced evidence and had presented at trial, and he presented 9 lay witnesses, and O'Brien presented 9 lay witnesses who stated that they did not believe that O'Brien would likely be a danger to society in the future. The jury answered with 2 special issues affirmatively, and he was sentenced to die. So, his conviction and sentence was affirmed by a Texas Court of Criminal Appeal on September 26th, and his in July 1980, he filed a petition for habeas corpus relief, which was dismissed without prejudice so that he could return to the state court and present additional unexhausted claims. His second application to the state of habeas corpus relief was denied September 1st, 1982, and his execution date was October 31st, 1982. On September 29th, 1982, he filed a second application, and the district court denied his application, and then it was scheduled for October 20th. And when he was granted a stay and requested a certificate of probable cause on October 27, 1982. Okay, so he contends that the Texas capital sentencing procedure is unconstitutional because it does not provide instructions for the jury concerning mitigating circumstances. He argues that in the absence of such instructions, the determination and punishment is left to the unburied discretion. Like, he's basically trying to argue his sentence, guys. He knows his time's coming to an end, but he is trying to argue his sentence. So that's the crazy part right there. He also complains his constitutional rights were violated when the prosecutor was permitted to comment during closing arguments at the sentencing during trial on the defense's counsel failure to question witnesses concerning his reputation for being a peaceful and law-abiding citizen. They're presenting evidence. They're not presenting your character. That's the thing. It's a weak defense, but the trial court overruled O'Brien's objection in the prosecutor's argument. And the court added that while the burden of proving the special issues of the state was the option of coming forward in mitigating circumstances upon the capital defendant, ruling was not an error. But yeah, he was determined to prove he was innocent. That's the thing. But still, guys, what do you think? Do you think he killed his son? Do you think that the candy was actually given to him? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. I will see y'all next time, and y'all have a spooktacular Halloween.